So welcome to this webinar. This is our Higher Education Comms webinar about building community with storytelling. And this is session one of a series that we're running in education. And we are your hosts. I'm Dawn Murden, VP of Customer Success.
And my name is Jenna Skinta. I'm a key account executive here at Shorthand. So, just a couple housekeeping points to lead off with. We're aiming for the webinar to be around 45 minutes in length. Happy to stay on if there are additional questions towards the end with any Q&As that might run a bit longer. And for anyone that might ask, this session is being recorded and we can send it to you afterwards, which I will share after we're finished up for today. So in terms of the agenda and what we'll cover, we'll give an introduction to the session and what we have planned out next, and then we'll look at how educational institutions are currently using visual storytelling with shorthand. We'll also look a bit at some tips and tricks for storytelling for educational institutions, and then some next steps and follow-up resources that might be helpful for you to explore as you start testing out shorthand for yourself and your universities. And then again, we'll stay around for a few minutes at the end to see if there are any additional questions. And worth noting, I will be monitoring the chat box while Dawn is talking through the examples and tips and tricks. So if you have any questions, please do drop them in there and we'll be sure to address them as the recording goes on.
Great. So a little bit of an introduction to this session then, and a little bit about us as well. So firstly, an introduction into this session. So this is one of approximately 4 sessions a year that we run on special topics that are deeply connected to storytelling. Our team works with a number of educational institutions already, and shorthand has become a critical part of their marketing strategy. So looking forward to digging into those examples with you today. And this is the first of 2 sessions in storytelling and education. The next session, we're going to have a guest speaker, and I'm sure we'll run other sessions on this sector in the future as well. And Jenna, over to you.
Oh, over to me. So just an introduction for me. I'm Jenna. I'm based in Dallas, Texas. I've been with Shorthand just as of this year. Um, so excited to meet you all and to talk a little bit about storytelling and shorthand, and I especially love the educational segment, which Dawn and I work really closely with here at Shorthand. So Dawn, I'll toss it back to you.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And I'm based in the UK and I've been with Shorthand since 2017. Great. Well, that's enough about us. We're going to switch our cameras off now and then we'll go into these examples that we are really looking forward to showing you. So bye for now, on the camera at least. So how are educational institutions using visual storytelling? I've picked 9 examples to go through with you today. They're all very different. And basically, I'm going to walk you through each of them, talk you through kind of what they did and how they are using visual storytelling to kind of get their message across or make an impact, also to build community and sort of pick out some of the features that they've used as well. So, really hoping that you'll walk away from today with a lot of food for thought and some inspiration. So, we open this section with a story from the University of Cambridge about the late Professor Stephen Hawking. He came to Cambridge in 1962 as a PhD student, and this piece was published very shortly after his death in 2018. And it pays tribute to him through pictures, words, video, and archive material. And just sort of remaining with that archive material aspect, with archive material, it can be tricky to sort of make that shine really well, make it work really well on the web. And they've done a really fantastic job of that by using some of the different features. Next story is one by Emory University. And this story features 16 first year students at the Emory University. And they interview the students about their hopes and dreams for the future. It's a simple piece, with words and images. And at the bottom, it includes a few different CTAs that kind of request you to read a few more bits of content or find out more about the university. So I'll just get down to the CTA at the bottom. And as you can see, it has a consistent layout all the way through. What we'll do at the end of today's session as well is send over the story that we're presenting from today so that you have all of these links to go through in your own time. So, of course, we're going to be showing you them on desktop, but it's really worth having a look at these on mobile and perhaps a tablet as well to see just how seamlessly they work across all different devices. So here we're now at that CTA. This is the call to action on more content that you can read after you've read that piece. Um, very often, these pieces are put out in sort of alumni magazines or maybe on socials. It's a really great opportunity to have that never ending engagement for the readers at the end and sort of, signpost them to another piece of content that you might want them to read after they've finished the one that they're on. And then we also have a couple of other links down the bottom here if you wanted to find out more about Emory Magazine, the News Centre, or Emory University. Also, we have the sharing buttons at the top here. So what these do is they give the reader a really easy opportunity to share this with their own audience. And they've chosen the social channels that they most predominantly operate on. So they've got Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then they've also got an email sharing here as well. So really great to allow the audience to reshare it with their own audience. Next up, we have the University of Amsterdam. And sorry, just accepting these cookie notices on these various examples here. So, because with shorthand, what you're doing is you're building within the editor, and then you're going to publish onto your own website, be that a number of different ways. So hence why that cookie notice comes up there, like it would do on their native website. So, this story, Smart Cities, explores how UVA researchers are examining the massive potential, pitfalls, and the impact of a more connected society. This article examines the technology in an engaging way by using image layering to create an animation effect. So we'll see that. I'll just scroll back up and just kind of pause to show you. Firstly, in this first section here, where we have talking about sort of having cameras within bedrooms of sort of high need individuals, so they can see if they do need assistance very quickly. And then we have the city here. So this is a number of images layered one after the other to create that kind of almost an animation effect or before and after as we scroll through. And what you'll note when you scroll through all of these examples is that everything is kind of in the fingertips of the user, of the reader. So they get to make everything happen upon scroll, whether it's me on a mouse today as I present to you, or perhaps you afterwards as you click through these and then look on your mobile. And as you can see, they have that CTA at the bottom of this example as well. Next up, we have the Holdsworth Centre. So this story is actually one part of the Holdsworth 2023 Impact Report. And it celebrates the achievement of the Education Leadership Development Centre, and it focuses on improving public schools. Now, what they do in this particular part of the impact report is they're honing in on a case study to really sort of play through the impact that they're having within their community, within the school system that they work in, and they sort of bring that through with the interviews that they have with various people that they're working with as well. And the graphics that move upon scrolling tell the story of how 42 bilingual students passed their state mandated English 1 exam at high school. And then you can see we're sort of into the interview part now. So just to scroll up again and just kind of hone in on one of the effects here that we first saw at the beginning. This is what's called a scroll point section, where we have one image within the background, and then we actually scroll to different parts of that image. So what this allows the creators to do is to perhaps have one singular image. Maybe that's something that you're designing yourself, like an infographic that you're designing in-house with in-house designers or maybe an agency. Um, or you could use photography in the scroll point section as well. And you're choosing these sort of areas of interest that the reader can move around to. And just to accelerate to the bottom of this story, just to show you that this is part of a larger report, so that 2023 impact report, which we can then go to as well. So we can then sort of see the whole report here and how that is kind of one piece of the impact report. And the great thing about this example is, sort of focusing on that one part of the report, but they've broken it up into these different stories almost. And this is a really great way of doing that, because as the institution, you have to produce an impact report that, of course, talks about everything that you're doing as an organization. But let's face it, not everyone is going to read every single kind of part of your impact report that you're putting out into the world. So by kind of chopping it up into these different pieces, these very clear sections, you can then reshare sections of that to particular stakeholders, maybe sort of donors, alumni, etc. So you can use this again and again and have those different pieces and break it up for the reader too. Next up is the University of Bristol. And this article details, sorry, I'll just accept that, uh, an Arts and Humanities Research Council funded collaboration within the city, which was supported by Bristol University historians. And it's enabled actually the wider British community to create, explore, and preserve their local histories. Now, what's really great about this one is, again, really beautifully designed graphics all throughout, a very consistent design, which we're seeing in each of these stories. But one thing that really shines in this story is the use of foreground and background video to help bring this to life and show the tool in action that they're talking about here. So this is one example of that. And actually, at the beginning here, when we have this first entry point into the story itself, we have this looping, autoplay, and muted video that just loops around for us, and we can see this tool in action and how it works. So it's giving us a little bit of a teaser to then that what we would call a foreground video later on. The reason we have two distinctions of video within shorthand, so foreground and background video. Background is an accent, it plays in the background. Foreground is something that the reader can click and play and engage with. And in this case, it shows how the tool works and gives a little bit more information into that collaboration that the university was involved with. You'll also see they have things like buttons here, so you can visit the map. And if we scroll to the bottom, we see a timeline, and then also sort of a standing thing at the bottom about the Arts and Humanities Research Council, so we can find out a little bit more about that part of the university as well. Next up is the University of Denver. And this is part of the University of Denver's Student and Alumni magazine. And this particular section is about King's College hockey. It contains 3 feature stories, if I just scroll down to show you. And it also has a call to action to purchase a season ticket as well, which is a really, really nice touch. And then if I focus in on this story, so this is the We Are Timber map. And this is that scroll point section again. So a singular image in here, or an infographic of a map. And then what we're doing is we're choosing kind of different points of this map to scroll to. And then what they've done is they've sort of highlighted all of the social media engagement here. So really great, again, example of kind of creating community through these stories, kind of bringing it all together in one place. And as mentioned, this is sort of one section of, if we go back, the University of Denver magazine. So something they produce um, every quarter. And then here you can see they have sort of a main feature, info about different departments, and some alumni stories in here as well. And then a CTA contact us here at the bottom. Next up is Portico, and this is the University College London alumni and support magazine. And this is another great example of how you could perhaps transition your print magazine into a digital online world and sort of get more engagement. Now, of course, many organizations are going to continue with their print magazine. We do often speak to a number of organizations as well that have that kind of tricky balance as well, where they might have maybe lost funding, or things got very tricky during COVID as well for printers. So during that time, unfortunately, a lot of printers were not able to run. And then a lot of things had to go online, be it in this kind of engaging format or unfortunately sometimes in PDF. Now, understandably so, you have to produce PDFs for things like annual reports. From a compliance point of view, you have to have that kind of easily kind of digestible format that you can uh, produce and send around to stakeholders. However, PDFs for for comms individuals, for comms leaders, for marketing leaders, they just don't tell us how the readers are engaging with those. So we often just see download figures of the PDF report and that's it. Whereas because this is an online um, magazine, what we do get to see is we get to see, so how many people do come to the landing page, how many people are clicking on these different features, what is the most read feature of each magazine that we're putting out there. So it really gives us a lot more as content creators to understand, how this content is actually, hitting with our audience. This, as you can see, is sort of split into those kind of different components. And then, of course, we also have a call to action here as well. So if you wanted to kind of get in touch with the UCL community, if you have a story to tell or feedback, then you can contact us there. They also have their socials on here. So it's kind of looping that back into socials as well. So you can go and follow them on those social networks if you're not already. Next up is Rutgers University over in the States. And this one tells the story of an alumni and an associate professor who visited Africa for the first time and visited a site where captured men and women and children were shackled, sold, and forced into slave ships. And it features image layering and CTAs to more content to really bring this to life as well. So this is one of the standout moments from this. It's beautifully written as well. And from a visual perspective, we get to hone in on kind of two of the key points of interest on the island here. And those visual elements always do such a great job of bringing these stories to life and kind of transporting you to those places. So another really great example. And as we can see, more featured stories again at the bottom here. Now, final example, this is one by Durham University over here in the UK. And this is a clever story. This is perhaps a little bit more of maybe a little wild card in that this story gives a little teaser to an online exhibition about a 1924 Everest exhibition with a bit of a difference though. So all of the stories that we've looked at so far have scrolled from top to bottom, whereas this one actually scrolls from bottom to the top. Now, they have enabled that through some custom code to override the sort of native behavior within a shorthand story. So, shorthand, one of the great things about it is you don't need to be a coder, you don't need to be a designer to make stories and make them look really great. And it's all about the ease of wow. So, producing stories really, really quickly that are going to really engage the audiences that you are trying to connect with. However, if you do no code yourself or you work with a development team, then on some of our plans, you can add custom code into your stories, which is a fantastic way of maybe adding more customization to them, like this particular example. So when we get to the end of the story, as we reach the top of Everest, we then get a call to action to visit the online exhibition and find out a little bit more. But a really, really clever story there. Well, I hope you enjoyed looking at all of those examples. If you have any questions about any of those examples, please do let them know. I know Jenna's looking at the chat box and chatting to you now. But yeah, if you have any questions about those, please do send your questions through. And then for now, we'll move on to tips and tricks for storytelling. So, kept it quite simple for this. Sort of bearing in mind the stories that we've looked at today and some of the kind of uh, clear patterns that we see in them and the things that work really, really well. So, it's just three top tips to bear in mind today, and we'll build on those in the future. So, firstly, use a range of multimedia to tell the story and really bring that narrative to life. So, I'm sure you can agree some of the most memorable stories that we've looked at today do use a mix of multimedia, whether that's background video to add a little bit of atmosphere or an accent in the background, or foreground video to add a bit of flavor, sort of with that tool to go behind the scenes and see how it works, or maybe if it's an interview, sort of having an interview with someone on there. And there's also opportunities to sort of maybe embed other things that you're using as well. So maybe forms, if you want to put data capture into your stories, that's another great thing that you can do. And then also things like Instagram, like we saw in that University of Denver story. Next up, next tip, number two, focus in on human stories or case studies to pull the reader in and showcase the community impact of the institution. Now, any education institution is really at the heart of the community. Education institutions do so much, as I'm sure many of you working in them already know. And I imagine you're very immensely proud of what your organization does and what it achieves. And oftentimes, making the stories much more human, much more personal, or kind of really focusing in on a particular case study just really brings it to life a lot more. So, for example, with the Holdsworth Centre, they really focused in on those 42 students passing that exam. It's something that they have to do in high school, so they focus in on that, and then also the people around that, the leadership of the individuals that enabled that to happen. And it's a very inspiring read. To some things, some ways in which this stuff can often be put out into the world is a bit dry, it's a bit static. Whereas if you can kind of give that human story or the very specific case study, it really kind of centers it and makes it very deep. And people remember those stories. People go away remembering the story, rather than the kind of the thing that the organization's doing. It they remember the story about the people. And then number three, always include a CTA with your key objective firmly in mind. So, for example, this could be a specific action that you would like the readers to take. Uh, so maybe for alumni, it's about kind of alumni fundraising, alumni donorship. For maybe impact reports, you're thinking about the different stakeholders that you might be engaging with. maybe it's something as simple as including those social media sharing buttons so that the audience that you're sharing it with can then share it with their network afterwards. So you can make that story work really, really hard for you after you've put a lot of you know poured a lot of heart into it and a lot of hard work. And another one would be continued reading as well. So if you've, perhaps added a story like this onto your social network, and then someone has clicked on it, give them something to read afterwards. If they get to that bottom of the story, keep them for as long as you can. And that might be maybe having the action further down the line as well. Maybe you want someone to read a few more stories before they take that action. Okay, that concludes those three top tips. As I say, kept it really, really short and simple today. But if you would like any more kind of top tips, please do get in contact. Our contact details at the end. We'll go through those. But really, really more than happy to, would in fact be delighted to carry on this conversation. But in the interest of time, we'll go into a little quick demo now and take you into the shorthand editor. So today we've been presenting from shorthand. As you can see, this is the story that we've got open today. So just go into our dashboard. Now, if you're not already using shorthand, it is very easy to sign up. In fact, it's free to do so, and you can create as many stories as you would like for free. And you only start paying when you publish more than one story. To create a new story, just click New Story up here, and then it'll ask you if you have more than one team, which you probably don't if you're starting out, which team you want. I've chosen my team, so I'm taken through to these options. So if I, for example, would like to import some content that already exists, I can import from an existing web page, or I can import from an existing PDF. I can also decide if I'd like to have auto layout turned on or off, and that's going to give some sort of inject different images from Unsplash, which is our royalty-free picture service that we have built into Shorthand, and it's going to give you some sort of more guidelines in terms of how you could create that. Now, what I always say to all of the customers that I work with, um, and that any of my team work with, is this is just a great way to expedite the creation of your stories, but you really want to have a solid understanding of how many sections you want, what your objective is, etc. And if you need to kind of go into that in a bit more detail, our team can always help with that. We also do have a number of templates, and we actually have hot off the press. So this week we've released three new education templates, especially for this webinar. So you are the first to hear about these, unless you logged into Shorthand this morning and found them first. But we have three great new templates. So the first one of these is this college player template. So you can see sort of how this has been built. And the idea of templates is to give you a starting point. We've built these with a bit of a guideline in mind of like how a typical story like this could be put together, so that you can then go in and you can upload your own media. You can remove the words in here and really make it your own. And if you decide you want to move sections around, you can do as well. So you can really make it your own. And by the way, at the top of every section on the right hand side, you'll see what section type this is. So for example, we can see this is a text section, as is that one. That one is a gallery. So you can always find out what section is what. Our other templates that we've recently introduced is this one, which is our donor template. Some really, really great features in here as well. And it really gets you sort of, you can kind of peer under the hood and kind of see how these different effects have been applied. So on every section, you get section options, and we can see, for example, we've got this like grayscale in and out on here. So that's why that image goes to grayscale as we kind of scroll in, and again as we scroll away. If as well you've already started building a story, and many of you have joined today, you're already using shorthand, which is fantastic, and actually you like a particular way in which these sections have been built as well. You can copy any of these sections as a section template so that you can add it to maybe stories that you've already started. So you don't have to have this whole kind of template. You can just create some of the sections as well. And then the final one is this one. And this is a great example of our reveal section. So many of the stories that I went through today had the reveal section in those where you have that image layering, where you can really bring that to life. Yeah, please do give these templates a go. Let us know what you think. Um, it's always great to hear how impactful these templates are in sort of getting our customers started in creating their first or even their 10th story. They can be really, really useful. A couple of other things to mention. So within Shorthand, you can set up a branded theme as well. So I'll just go into help here and go into theme. So when you create a theme, there's two ways you can do it. We can build a theme for you, or you can use our theme builder to create your own theme. And that's going to make sure that all of your own logos, fonts, and colors are added into your story. Also, if you would like to add calls to action, as of course that was one of the top tips today, I'll just go down to one of the sections here. So you can add a button. So it's just this here, insert a button, and then you can have a nice call to action at any point within your story as well to kind of add that in. Also, we talked a little bit about the sharing buttons today. So as you can see, these are here. We have LinkedIn, X, and Facebook here, and then you can edit the social sharing here as well. So if you would like to add any more sharing buttons, you can do as well. That's something that we can do for you in your theme. Brilliant. Okay, I'll just go back to here and might come back and turn our cameras on now because we're rolling just into the end. And Jenna, over to you for next steps and follow-up resources.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Um, Kind of the first bit is if you guys do want to test out those templates that Don just walked through, I think Don is going to pop those in the chat for you all to play around with. And then another option for follow-up and kind of more inspiration is following our craft newsletter. It has a ton of fantastic examples on visual storytelling beyond just some of the examples that Don walked through today to see how shorthand lives in the universe across other various industries beyond just education. We will also be announcing our next web education webinar fairly soon. As Dawn said, this is part of a series for us, which is really exciting. So stay tuned for the announcement of when that specific date will be announced. And then I think we also have a follow-up that Dawn might pop in here, or we could follow up via email with Behind This Story webinar with University of Queensland, another one of Shorthand's customers. So that's a fantastic video to watch and see their inspiration behind their approach to stories. And then always feel free to connect with myself or with Dawn. We would love to continue the conversation beyond here and hop on a call and answer any specific questions that might be relevant to you and your universities. So I will throw it back to you, Dawn.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jenna. So yeah, I have popped the link for all three of those templates into the chat box so you can see those. If you're not signed up for Shorthand already, do not worry. They go to our playground, so you can just open that. You don't need to give us your email. You don't need to create an account or anything. You can just open those and explore. And then if you do want to save any of the changes that you make to those templates, then you can sort of save them into your when you do create account there. So it's a college sports player profile, a researcher profile, and donor comms template as well. So quite similar to some of the examples that we looked at today. Brilliant. Well, we've got just over 5 minutes for questions. So I will have a little look at the chat box and just see if any questions have come through. Jenna, were there any questions that you started answering or that you think that we should go into a little bit more detail first? What?
One of the questions was around timelines, how quickly something like this could be created in shorthand.
That's a really great question. And I think in order to answer that, it's good to think about like what the alternative is to using something like shorthand to create some of these pieces. So there's a couple of different alternatives. One might be using bespoke web designers who are going to create a completely one-off page for you and put that together. And that, yeah, that could be weeks, that could be months. It really depends on what the piece is. If you're creating it within your own website, again, there's going to be a few variables there: the size of your team, um, and if you have uh, sort of the piece as well. How long is that piece? I think that question was on the Holdsworth Centre, so that was their impact report that we're talking about in particular, which obviously is a longer piece. It's a shorthand project, so it's multiple stories that are essentially threaded together within a project, and all linked together. Um, Now, I'm not sure. I would have to ask that customer like how long it took them. But with shorthand, it's going to take it from months to weeks or weeks to days. We have a number of customers that produce, for example, their alumni magazine pieces, within a few hours, and they get them online. Whereas other pieces, might be a longer burn. They might be a research piece of be collecting a lot of information for that. So then that might take a few weeks. But it's really quick and easy to create these pieces. Of course, with any tool, there's a little bit of a learning curve when you start using it. But I'm sure, hopefully you agree, when we stepped into the answer, shorthand's very easy and intuitive to learn and use. And then our team are on hand to help you develop your use of the platform as well. So, Jenna, anything to add to that? Do you think that answers the question?
I think that absolutely answers the question. Yeah, it also is just keeping in mind one of the benefits of shorthand is not only the ease of use, but it also is allowing your dev team to focus on other priorities that do require the time that, take top priority away from content teams. And so it's making the best use of allocating the resources that you have and focusing on the projects that your dev teams really do need to hone in on and give them that time back and allow the freedom of the creative teams to dive into shorthand and use it on their terms and their timelines. So something to keep in mind as well is the benefit that ultimately comes around for development teams of having that taken off their plate.
That's so true. Reducing those bottlenecks that oftentimes our customers tell us that they're so frustrated with.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah, great ads. Brilliant. And I think there was another question around platform integration and tech requirements. Uh, we do have a link to more information on that, which I'll just bring up here. So if you go into our support, we'll also send around a support link as well, so you don't have to log in to get access to it. But if you go on to publishing options, this gives a list of all of the different publishing options that are available to you within shorthand. The kind of starting point is shorthand hosting. So that's either using a shorthandstories.com hosting, so it will be my brand or my company shorthand stories, or you can custom mask that as well. So both of those are available. We do also offer root domain, but we tend to a subdomain is usually better for a couple of different technical reasons. Then, if you're using that, you can use our embed to actually bring the story into your website. And a number of those examples that we looked at today did use that as well. But we do have a number of closer integrations as well, depending on what CMS you're currently using, what your kind of tech stack looks like already. But we've never come across, I was going to say we've never met a CMS. We've never come across a CMS that we haven't been able to integrate with. It just depends on what's going to work best for you and your team. But we do Amazon S3, SFTP as well. We also have plugins for WordPress and Drupal. We have a download zip, and that's the first way you could ever publish a shorthand story. And then we have programmatic publishing as well. If you're not sure, like if you're on the content team, this is what shorthand is built for. It's built for content, comms, marketing teams, and you're not sure what your tech stack is, do not worry. Have your development team have a conversation with our team. We'll be happy to provide some guidance on what we think would be the best publishing method for you. Jenna, anything to add on that?
No, I don't think so. I also added the support document link in the chat there. So it includes info on publishing, but I'd really recommend just browsing the different support docs that are linked out from that particular link as well. There's a ton of valuable information beyond just tech integrations. It's a fantastic resource for any questions that you might have that you come across as you start playing around in shorthand.
Amazing. Brilliant. So just seeing if there are any other questions. We've got about 2 minutes left. So the theme builder, is that available to all free users, or is it exclusive to paid plans? Let's just bring that up to tell you a little bit more about the theme builder. Actually, I think we've condensed this.
Yeah. And as you pull that up, Don, a high level answer to that is it is available on our upper tier plan. So it is not available on our free plan. It is a custom feature, but beyond that, we also have in some of our upper plans the ability for shorthand to create a custom theme for you that takes into account your custom hex codes, your custom fonts, your logos. Our theme builder also integrates any third-party analytics as well as Google Analytics that's tied directly into your theme. So that is also an added benefit that you're not having to constantly think about your analytics integrations every time you are publishing a story. It's automatically applied via that branded theme. Anything else, Don?
No, actually, I was just because we initially had just branded themes, and Theme Builder is something that we launched around just over a year ago. So I was just making sure we did have a separate support document on that, which we do. But here's a little bit more about the Theme Builder, and it does go into a bit more information about which plans that's available on as well. So that's the team plan that starts on when you can use that. And as Jenna said, this is sort of a basic theme builder, and then if you want something more custom, then we can build a branded theme for you. We have time for maybe one more question, but we will read the questions maybe that we haven't been able to answer and just make sure that we can answer them. When we send over this story, we'll list out the links and kind of further resources here from all of the questions that have been asked today, so you can follow up with those. Just see if there's one more. Yep. Okay, brilliant. So I think it's just a few kind of follow-ups about like emails, which we followed up with as well, and then we'll follow up with this story as well, so that you can read that afterwards. But we are now on time, so just to make sure we don't keep you from the rest of your day, we will wrap up there. But thank you ever so much for joining both Jenna and I today. We really appreciate your time and hope that it's been useful. But please do connect with us afterwards. We would be delighted to hear from you. And if you have any feedback about today's session, we'd also love to hear that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've said a few times, this will be the first of many in a series. So anything that you would like to see in upcoming webinars focus on higher ed, please do give us a shout. We'd love to incorporate anything that you'd like to see. So really appreciate everyone's time.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. Bye.